Today you will be completing the Solving Quadratic Equations Mixed Practice. This assignment is due at the end of class, so please make sure you turn this into the substitute and it will be for a grade. I am going to go ahead and go over one question from each section just so you know what you're doing. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first section. We're going to go ahead and look at number 1. So number 1 says find the discriminant of each quadratic and state the number of solutions. So remember the discriminant is, we can use that to find the number of solutions of a quadratic equation. And the formula for the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. Now, if your solution, once you plug in the values of a, b, and c into this formula, are positive, that means you have two solutions. If it is 0, that means you will have only one solution. And if it is negative, that means you will have no real solution. So let's go ahead and determine the number of solutions that number 1 will have. We want to start off by identifying the values of a, b, and c. So a is 2, b is 5, and c is 7. So now we're going to go ahead and substitute in that information. So I have b squared, which is 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, and times c, which is 7. So now I'm just going to go ahead and plug that into my calculator. So I'm opening up a calculator window and I'm typing 5 squared minus 4 parentheses 2 parentheses 7. Pressing enter, I end up with a discriminant of negative 31. Now again, remember, because my discriminant is negative, this means that I have no solution. So again, you are going to determine the value of the discriminant and determine the number of solutions on numbers 1 through 4. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the next section. In the next section, we'll be taking a look at number 7. So for number 7, it says use the quadratic formula to solve the following equations. Round your solutions to the nearest hundredth when necessary. So again, the quadratic formula that we talked about yesterday, the formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So our first step is to identify the values of a, b, and c. So A is 8, B is negative 3, and C is negative 11. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that information into the formula. So I have x equals negative b, which is negative 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put b in parentheses, plus or minus the square root of b squared. And again, because b is a negative number, we always want to put that in parentheses, especially when we are squaring it in our calculator. Minus 4a, which is 8, times c, which is negative 11. And this is all over 2a, which is 8. Now we want to go ahead and simplify this. So simplifying this, I have x equals, and here I see I have two negative signs. Remember, when we have two negative signs, that becomes a positive. So here, this is a positive 3 plus or minus the square root. And now I want to plug the discriminant, which again is underneath the radical, into my calculator. So in our calculator, let's go ahead and find the discriminant. So I'm plugging in parentheses negative 3, step out of my parentheses squared, minus 4 times 8 times negative 11. When I press enter, I end up with 361. So this is 3 plus or minus the square root of 361 all over 2 times 8, which is 16. Now I'm going to go ahead and split this into two equations. So I have 3 plus the square root of 361 over 16. And I also have 3 minus the square root of 361 over 16. So now I'm going to go ahead and plug both equations into the calculator to find the solution. So my first equation is, since they're both fractions, I'm going to go ahead and press Control Divide. And again, I have 3 plus the square root, so Control Divide, of 361 all over 16. And when I press enter, I end up with 11 over 8. But we want to round this to the hundredths place. So I'm going to convert it to a decimal by pressing menu 2 1. And since I want to round this to the hundredths place, I notice that the 5 is going to round up the 7, 2, and 8. So this equals 11 over 8, which as a decimal is 1.38. Now I want to find the solution of my second equation. So again, I have a fraction, so Control Divide. 3 minus the square root of 361 over 16 is going to equal -1. So here, my two solutions are x equals 1.38 and x equals -1. Next, we're going to go and take a look at number 8. I'm only going to set it up with you, and I'm not going to solve the equation with you. For you. So we have 5x squared equals -6x plus 8. Again, in order to use the quadratic formula, your equation needs to be set equal to 0. So this means that I want to move -6x and 8 over to the opposite side of the equal sign, and we will do that by adding 6x and subtracting 8 to both sides. When I do this, my equation becomes 5x squared plus 6x minus 8 equals 0. Now from here, you can go ahead and identify the value of A, B, and C and plug that information into your calculator or into the quadratic formula. So on the rest of your assignment today, you can either choose to use the quadratic formula to finish up the rest of to finish up their next section, which I believe is numbers 11 through 14, or you can use the factoring method on 11 through 14, which would be using bottoms up or factor sum charts. Again, this will be for a grade, so please make sure you complete this. If you do not complete it in class, make sure you take it home for homework.